Hello everybody, welcome into the Hobby Bar. This is Jason, and welcome. Today, we'll be trying to continue up the Nobell Gundam. Just try to assemble it up, get it done, and move on to the next fun project. Back to painting probably, but probably got a little while longer to work on this. Yeah, no big deal. Sorry about no video this past week. Yeah, computer decided that it wanted to have some technical difficulties, so kind of makes working on this stuff hard. So anyway, if you do any hobbying, feel free to join in, jump along, get some stuff done too. If not, hey, that's cool too. I appreciate you hanging out. Anyway, and yeah, hopefully, if you're working on anything, you can get that done too. Otherwise, thank you for hanging out and having a chill time. But with that, if you want any background music, go ahead and cue that up. Otherwise, yeah, let's dive into continuing building this today. Alrighty, first up for today, we're going to go through step 10 here on the instructions. Got quite a bit to clip out and put together. This is one of those that you do two of. So, thinking for this episode, gonna just show one of the multiples instead of both of the multiples, because if you see one, you've seen the other, is kind of my thought process on that. So maybe you can save a bit of time and just chug through it, since it's set up chapters anyway. If you want to see the second part, you can always go into the timeline and check, or down in the description there's time codes to click and they'll take you to the various parts there. I'm interested to see how auto chapters would break it up, but I think what we'll do is we'll instead keep to a manual at least through the rest of Nobel here, and yeah. But you'll also notice I do have some sandpaper here today. I did want to give it a shot. I've been tinkering around with it a little bit at least, so I at least have some idea of what to do with it, instead of coming in completely blind. And not having any clue how to use it on this plastic. This is 600 grit that I have here cut up. What I realized after recording, I probably should have cut thinner strips of it, or make it shorter. Basically make slightly smaller squares than this. These are real easy to hold and stuff, but they were a little too wide. So I noticed if I wanted to try to use the most of the sandpaper as I could, I was kind of missing a lot in the middle area there. So, a little bit skinnier than that, or some other way to just make more of the area accessible is probably what I'd do in the future. But, yeah, it was a fun time just figuring out how to do the sanding without sanding down too much of the material. And then, how to wipe it all off so that you get rid of a lot of the plastic dust. So it was a fun little experiment, and I think it was pretty successful. Yeah, so this step 10 should be building up most of the ankle and foot, as well as the leg. Basically, for today's episode, we're going to just set up both legs, and then next week we can do the hip, and hopefully with the hip we can do some panel lining and start panel lining it, if not finish panel lining it. This way Nobel can be done and we can move back on to just normal painting. Because yeah, trying something different here with doing gunpla on it. It's still hobby adjacent, I feel, so that's why I figured I'd do a series on it for Nobel here, but doesn't seem to get much traction, so I think we'll go back to painting, and it's fine. We can come back to Gunpla another time. We'll go ahead and continue here with now cutting out the shoes part. So yeah, step 10 by itself is going to be just setting up the feet. And even though I'm showing the other piece getting clipped out here, I figured it's a short enough period of time that we can let the footage roll on clipping out the other shoe. and then we'll go back to just working on one at a time here. But anyway, we'll go ahead and finish up this process on the shoes. I did notice sanding the back of the shoe was kind of a pain just because of the shape of it. And I do also keep the mold line remover handy, because the mold line remover there is real good if you don't clip quite close enough to the piece. Like I noticed when sanding down, you don't want to clip perfectly flush. You want to clip slightly away from it. And if you're slightly away from it is too far away from it, it'll take a while to sand back down. So that's where the mold line remover comes in again. But yeah, I figure we can just show both the feet getting installed too onto the shoes. But now we're gonna add the top of the shoes on there. And yeah. But yeah, so that's why the mold line remover is still around. Is just in case I clip a little too far away from the piece, that I can come in and scrape it back with that, so it's a much smaller nub that I have to sand down instead of just sanding for an eternity on something that's kind of tall off of the surface that I want to get it down to. I could try also like finish sanding, get like, I think I have 1200 grit as well, sandpaper, to try to like get a finish on it instead of just leaving it somewhat slightly scuffed up because of the 600 grit. But on the white, it's kind of hard to tell what's been sanded and what's not, so you can be a little more generous on the white parts, I've noticed, than you can on other colors. But yeah, just gotta get these feet done. Last part of the shoes for the feet is just this little strap bridge kind of thing that attaches in there for the ankle armor effectively. Yeah, super simple. Just gonna go ahead and knock these two out, and that'll be all of step 10, which was just the feet, not the rest of the leg yet. And the next couple of steps are gonna handle the legs. But yeah, that's it for these. So I'll catch up with you here shortly after this process, and we'll move on to the next step. Alrighty, here we are moving on to step 11. They do keep both legs separate in the steps at least, because you have to kind of turn things different ways for it. So they at least do that for us on this kit. So right now I got to get the knee set up. So that's like the first part of this process. It's just getting the knee joints set up. So we'll get these bits clipped out, cleaned up, sanded up, and fitted up. And that'll be this sub-step. So yeah, I'll catch up both of y'all here in a little while after we do that to these bits. Alrighty, here we are continuing on that leg there, and we are now attaching the lower parts. Get the calves and the shin and knee guard effectively all done up. So yeah, just gotta get these little bits all clipped out, cleaned up, and sanded up, similar to before. And yeah. One thing I noticed while using the sandpaper, I really need to figure out when it's too clogged. I didn't really have a good gauge of that here. So you notice me using a lot of the dirtier side of the sandpaper, reusing it a lot. But it's fine, it worked out in the end. It just took a little while longer to sand down some things than it otherwise should have. But yeah, it was a fun time getting to try out some sandpaper. It's been sitting around since I tried using it on a effectively a scenic diorama style base kind of a thing a while ago. So it was good to at least get some of it used again. Yeah. I didn't think I'd need it before, but it definitely helps get rid of the nubbins, which you sometimes have left over even after using the mold line remover to scrape it down. So I can see why people like using the sandpaper. But anyway, we'll wrap up with step 11 here for this leg, this lower leg, and I'll catch up with y'all here shortly when we move on to finishing the leg assembly here on what I believe is the right leg. Yeah, that would be her right leg. Alright, so catch you with y'all here in a bit. Alrighty, here we are moving on to step 12. So step 12 is basically just cutting out well, effectively three parts, then slapping some things together to connect them all up. But for this part, yeah, just gotta cut out and assemble the joint here for what's effectively her hip joint. And then get the upper leg armor case, whatever you want to call it, for the upper leg cut out, cleaned up, and slid onto the lower leg part there. But yeah, relatively simple process. More sanding, more scraping, more trying to keep things smooth and cleaned up. But we'll go ahead and continue on with this process on these little nubbins for the hip joint. And I'll catch up with y'all here shortly for when we start cleaning up the upper leg armor and trying to fit that up. Because I don't think anything too special happens here other than this example of me clipping a little too far away and deciding it's better to use the mold line remover there instead of just sanding forever and a half. Anyway, I'll catch up with y'all here shortly. Alrighty, here we are clipping up that other armor upper leg piece. The other one's already been clipped out and it's sitting there with the red metallic band around it. So that's why there was only one to clip out in here for this one. Just because that other one's been waiting for a long time to finally be fit up and not be loose bouncing around. So we'll go ahead and do that. I did notice for whatever reason on this kit, there was a pretty bad like seam line around where the red band would be on the other leg. So I decided, you know what, it's not showing up very well on all the other white pieces, so we're going to sand the heck out of it and try to get rid of that little line there. And it does end up working out pretty well. I might have to come through and try to top coat everything, which would be a new adventure as well. Maybe I'll try matte varnish. I don't know. I don't even know if I'll bother top coating. I haven't done it before, so it would be a new experiment as well, and I would have to go pick some up, which probably wouldn't be the best time. But yeah, that's why this process, even though it's literally one piece and then you slide it on, it takes a little while longer because I was trying to fiddle with the seam line there for the longest time. It just, for whatever reason, was not disappearing, so... But eventually I did knock it back enough to where it's like, okay, it's minimal to not noticeable, so we can call it good enough for now. But we'll go ahead and finish up this process here. Finish up this leg, get the foot slapped in there right towards the end, and catch up with y'all here shortly when we move on to the next step, which is going to be a combination, or it's going to be basically the same idea but for the other leg. So I'll catch up with y'all here shortly for that. Okay, before we actually dive into it, I just wanted to show that I was trying a fit up of this, just to see how it looked together, see how the red fit, and compare it. So that's why on the right there you see the leg all complete, basically complete. All we have to do is get the hip joint assembled up and plugged in, and it'll be all good to go. But that's why I left that quick little snippet in there of just fitting everything up and basically getting it ready other than this little hip joint. I know, skipping around in steps very slightly on what needs to be done here in this step, but I figured, what the heck. The foot's not going to really make too much of an impact on how this plugs in, and wanted to just see how that other leg armor piece with the red band fit up. And honestly, it kind of matches well, even though it's a red metallic. So, pretty happy about that. Not sure how I want to seal it in, though. So that'll be a fun little thing to try to figure out. Because probably don't want to use a matte varnish on it. Maybe a satin varnish over it. I'm thinking either satin or gloss varnish over it, but not quite sure which one yet. So, we'll just have to spend some time and figure that out here. But, yeah, we'll finish up this hip joint. And then, last little bit, just because things are starting to get close to assembly completion, I wanted to get rid of those nubbins on the hair, so that'll be the last little bit on this episode. Anyway, catch up with you all here in a bit for that, once we finish up with the left leg here. Alrighty, so now I just wanted to get rid of the extra nubbins on the hair because, well, I figure it's time to get rid of them since a lot of the rest of Nobell is assembled up, so I don't want these clanging about and scratching it just in case it gets shifted somehow. So, yeah, that's why I wanted to get this done while I was thinking about it. So, big downside I noticed was, thankfully it was primed, so I wasn't able to peel the paint off too easily, but I think I might have chipped the paint inside slightly in one area. I noticed it when I was setting up for the spin later, that it looked like some of it was peeled off, and there was a bit of a white fleck in there. So I was like, might have to touch that up a bit later, but it's not super noticeable, so maybe it's not too bad. One thing when sanding here on the hair, I kind of had a hard time figuring out on that bend out. That bend that kind of leans up in the hair. Like, it's kind of awkward to try to sand at that angle. Like, this sort of angle where it's curved away from the paper, that's fine, but when it curves back into it, it's super awkward for me for some reason. I can't quite figure it out. Anyway, that's what I decided to do here, was just get these nubs cleaned up, get the hair all lined up and nice and neat. Because that's the other thing we gotta attach next time, is get the hair all set up to attach. So, gotta get the hips done, and the hair, and then hopefully we can get into panel lining a little bit. Because I just want to show a little bit of the process, not necessarily go over the whole thing on camera, because that's probably going to take me quite a while to do. But yeah, at least then will be a little bit of painting back on the channel before we go back to a full painting project. We'll have to figure out what that'll be here coming up. But anyway, with that, go ahead and finish up this process, just cleaning up the hair. We're not going to attach it or anything. And I'll catch up with y'all here in a little bit for the last call and spin. Alrighty, last call everybody. Last call. So, getting closer to completion on Nobel. Again, sorry about no video last week. Had some technical difficulties with the old computer here. But, hopefully we'll be able to continue chugging along for a little while longer on this. Yeah, not really much to talk about here on this process. Just, I appreciate y'all hanging out, hopefully getting some stuff done as well, and, having a chill time. But with that, if you have anything for me, feel free to have a chat below in the description, or in the comments, and, if not, hey, that's cool too. I appreciate y'all hanging out, and just hopefully you got whatever you're working on done. But with that, hopefully I'll see y'all next week, and fingers crossed we'll be able to get this done. But with that, I'll catch up with y'all next time, and have a good one out there, everybody. Take care out there.